Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here with us this morning. This is our last day of International Coaching Week, edition 2023. Thank you for joining us this morning. And I am going to introduce to you Joanna Davis, MCC. She has over 5,000 hours of coaching experience. She has spent 7 years as senior faculty for a level 2 ICF credentialed school, works in-house as an employee engagement coach for a South Florida Fortune 500 company and 20,000 plus employees. Is an ICF PCC assessor, serves as mentor coach for Reciprocal Coach, and has a small private practice specializing in coaching to executive development. Her passions include the neuroscience of human behavior, creating food forests, and trying to keep up with the centuries. Welcome, Joanna. Thank you for being with us one more day.
Thank you and good morning.
Good morning.
I love seeing everyone here and sending love to anybody listening on the recordings. Appreciate that the learning is happening. And hope that anyone listening to the recordings will get as much out of it as the people having the conversations. So as most of you know, I tend to keep this very conversational. Not big on slide decks, not big on presenting per se. So what I am going to do though is we've walked through this week. We started out with creating the coaching agreement. And then we talked about facilitating client growth. So markers or competencies 3 and 8. Yesterday, we talked about competencies 6 and 7, listening actively and evoking awareness. So today, what we have left is cultivating trust and safety and maintaining presence, competencies 4 and 5. We have skipped competencies 1 and 2. Mainly because the markers don't call out something, well, it does call out something measurable for competency 1. Do you know how competency 1 is measured? So competency 1 demonstrates ethical practice. Is anybody aware of how that's measured before we just jump into competencies 4 and 5?
No, I don't.
Okay, wow, okay. So demonstrates ethical practice. As a PCC assessor, I have to listen for basically the whole code of ethics. And if there is an egregious violation, then I make a note of that. And someone at ICF is going to go back and listen to the recording, check it against ethics. So it's not that the assessor gets to make the final call. The assessor is saying, hey, this is what I heard, somebody check this out, as far as that one goes. So it's super important to demonstrate ethical practice. And the other part of it is that the coach maintains for most of the call the role of coach. So if I'm assessing and I'm hearing, the coach is giving great advice on real estate, and I may be really interested in that, but that's not coaching. Or if the coach goes into therapeutic mode. And because there's a lot of therapists that have taken coach training. And there's a lot of coaches who maybe haven't had adequate training that will go into the role of amateur therapist. So listening for that. Those are the two things, in case you were wondering, what do we look for in competency 1? In competency 2, there's actually a list of the PCC markers. And I'm going to give them to you. They will be on the recording. It's 4.1, 4.3, 4.4. So 4.1, 4.3, 4.4. 5.1, 5.2, 5.3, and 5.4. So in the 5s, it's 1, 2, 3, and 4. 6.1 and 6.5. And 7.1 and 7.5. And this is not, super secret sauce. Basically, that's what makes up competency 2. So there's nothing that says, oh, it's just one of those things that, and oh, here's a great question. Do you have to hit all of the markers to pass your PCC? No, you do not. Good. Good. You know this. There's no requirement to hit all of the markers. It really is the coach demonstrating? Now, the ICF has an algorithm, and the only people that are allowed to know what the algorithm is are actually the founders of schools, or the person in charge at the school. So even me as an assessor, I don't know. I don't know their algorithm. So it's how many in each category. I can't give you that answer, even as an assessor. But what I do know is, hit more than less, obviously. And again, we talked about it a little bit yesterday, and I'm going to say it again. PCC is not perfect certified coach. It is professional certified coach. And as an assessor, I am not expecting someone to be at the top of the PCC markers, like just entering MCC. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm literally looking for someone who's just past the top of ACC. At the minimum requirements for PCC. So this is all about levels of learning. And, I got my MCC, about 5 years ago? I'm still learning. I'm going to be learning as long as I'm alive and as long as I'm a coach. And hopefully those will coincide with each other. So what I'm going to do now is I'll go ahead and share my screen. We're starting off with the competencies, I think, hopefully. So as we start off with the competencies, it gives us a basis for what the markers are built on. And let me see if I can fix my view so I can see people and my screen. Give me just a second. There we go. All right. So who would read for me just under cultivating trust and safety, the definition?
I can do that today. So cultivates trust and safety. Definition: partners with the client to create a safe, supportive environment that allows the client to share freely, maintains a relationship of mutual respect and trust.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Keep going, or?
No, we'll stop there. So what does it mean? Or how do you know? How do you know when you're maintaining that relationship of mutual respect and trust?
I think part of it is the flow of the conversation, because if you were listening, thinking like the assessor, or if the conversation is stuck, like in a walkie-talkie thing, there is no trust, right? But if there is like a lot of flow, oh yeah, oh no, oh I didn't think, or so there is a sense of listening, the flow, there is a movement or something. I think not only in the words, but in the flow more than anything.
Non-verbal also communication. For me, I can see the client on Zoom also. The engagement, is the person relaxed, is the person open? All signs that in his voice or her voice is, many capturing a sense of connection.
Yeah.
And I wonder, there was a presentation this week on culture and the cultural differences. I sometimes, when I've had clients from a different cultural background, I'm not always so attuned to what how that comes through for them. So I talk about it. I'm not sure if this is the right way. I talk about it at the beginning during my discovery meeting. I make it very important for me to understand what respect looks like for them, and have them describe to me how they know that they're being respected and how they know that they are showing respect. And then I also communicate that about myself. and I do the same about trust. And so I let it become like a thing immediately so that they know that it's going to be something that, and I tell them that this is of great value for our relationship. So, and then I kind of take it from there.
Beautiful. So you really set it up as part of your coaching agreement. That's, yeah, I love that.
Shakti, what could you share with us? What would you say about you, for example? How do you show respect?
So how I show respect is to honor the agreements that we make, whether that's how we're showing up on time, how we're going to cancel, if I'm going to do something that I say I'm going to do. I can obviously forget, we're all human, but I will always be, you know, I apologize if I feel like I've done something that I shouldn't have, or, but I talk about, sorry, some things that might happen. And then I just kind of allow, I also ask them what, you know, how they perceive to be respected. So like, what is it that would show you that I'm respecting you? And then I can speak to that specifically. So if they say, oh, I need you to always let me finish my sentences, that's when I know I'm being respected. Then we can talk about intruding, because I can also immediately tell them that I will intrude. It will not be disrespectful. That way they know that, even though they typically would see that as a sign of disrespect.
I like that. Thank you.
What a beautiful practice. What a beautiful practice to set that up. Yeah. Suli, I see you're off mute. What did you want to add?
I was going to say that I just had an experience that really saddened me in a way, but it took me back because I established the trust and also the share and the respect. And I asked, how do you like to be challenged? And would you like to be a passive way? And she says, no, I love to be challenged. And I went into observation, how to intrude, in the sense that I actually asked, I have an observation. May I share with you now? Or would you like me to wait into further down? That's part of my process. Sometimes they don't want to be intruded, and then they say, yeah, please, I want to hear what you have to say. But this, even though establishing all that, this woman at the end started crying, and I could tell she was going to depression, but she just started crying. She says, you don't listen to me. I was so, not first hurt. I'm going to share that I was hurt. And then I said, I am so sorry. Can you, where have I disrespected you? And she couldn't say. So it's hard, even though you say you're detached, when someone tells you that after 1 hour and 5 minutes of sharing, and there was a lot of trust. I just, you know, it's hard. So I put all that up front, and yet things like that can happen.
And things like that do happen to all coaches at some point, because we're going to misread how someone is responding. You know, it's unfortunate. And it's one of those things, you know, what could I have done better?
Yes.
And really, you know, and maybe in that meeting, and this is one of those things about neuroscience. Once someone is triggered and they go into that part of the brain, it can take anywhere from 3 hours to 3 days for that to remediate. So if someone is triggered in that moment, they may not be able to share. At that point, maybe the best thing to do is say, I'd love to reconnect with you in a few days and talk about this.
Yeah, that's exact. It was already past an hour. It was 1 hour and 5 minutes. I did have somebody else, something. I said, I really like you to think about it. I even sent her an email afterwards, and I said, when you're ready to talk about, let's reschedule. That's all I could do.
Yeah, to do that deep discovery, and really any sense whenever something like that happens in my practice, because I've had it in my practice where people have said, oh, you don't listen to me, or you're not listening, and gotten very frustrated with me. and it's always that it's on me. It's always on me, because anything that I do that isn't on me is going to make them defensive and make them wrong. And that's definitely not where I want to be coming from, especially for cultivating trust and safety. The other thing I heard is that particular client bordering on depression may be a great referral to mental health. So that's always to go back to the ethics of, is this a good client for me? And
that was, that it's not like the first session. We had a discovery kind of session. We got to know, we discussed the agreement, second section. This was the third session out of actually nowhere. And I don't know what triggered her. So it showed like a total chemical mood or whatever triggered her. I love to know. I don't know. And that's the thing, that what did I miss? What did I do? What did I didn't see? And so I send her an email, says, listen, I'm here to help. If I did anything, please think about it and call me and schedule again.
Yeah.
Out of nowhere. I didn't.
Hopefully she'll give you the opportunity to go back, because there's no way to deconstruct a session that we weren't in. If we had, that would be a great recording for a mentoring session.
Yes.
Recording. So going back to, cultivating trust and safety, we talked a little bit about how we recognize it. So I'm going to change my screen in a minute over to the markers. There we go. And let's see how the ICF says that we measure how we cultivate trust and safety. Who would read 4.1 for me?
I can do it. 6, to understand the client. No, the marker. Hold on a second. Am I in the right place? No, marker. 4.1. Okay. Coach acknowledges and respects the client's unique talents, insights, and work in the coaching process.
Okay. So how do we do that? How do you show respect and acknowledge their talent, their insight, their work in the coaching process?
Acknowledgement and championing, maybe? I don't know.
Okay. And one of the things we have to be very careful of is not approving of. I'm guilty of this, especially when we're doing, presentations like this. Somebody will say something and I'm like, yes, thumbs up or agree or clap or whatever. And then sometimes I don't. And what that does is it sets up, and it's completely, it's one of the things I'm trying to change and haven't gotten there yet. But it sets it up where the person who didn't get an applause or didn't get a thumbs up thinks, oh, what did I do wrong? Was mine not good? So the coach cannot set approval. So acknowledging and respecting is not approving. Things like, oh, that's a great idea. Sounds like acknowledgement or respect, comes across as approving. So if the client has a great idea, what could you say? What could a coach say to acknowledge and respect, but take away the approval, disapproval lens?
You can share. I'm noticing you're expanding the possibilities in this conversation. What do you think about it? So they will rate, right?
Yeah. So expanding the possibilities instead of that's a great idea. Well, I'm really hearing you expand your possibilities. Yeah. Carol, you've got yourself unmuted.
Yeah, I was going to say something similar like that, sort of like you seem very excited about this idea. Where do you want to go with it?
Yeah. Sully, I saw you take yourself off mute there for a second.
Your energy changed immediately when you started talking about it. Your eyes lit up. You're showing total happiness and joy just about talking about it. What's that all about?
Mhm. Which actually, interestingly, would fall under 6.4 because you're noticing their energy and you're asking a question, and would also fall under 7.5, observing and inviting exploration. So notice how the markers, they just keep intertwining together. Sorry for scrolling up and down the screen on you, because I know sometimes it's like hard to watch. But yeah, I see you've put a lot of thought into this. Doesn't approve or disapprove. It gives that, I hear what you're saying without I approve of what you're saying. And I acknowledge that you're working. I've literally told clients, you have worked so hard in this session. How are you feeling about it? And again, putting it back to them, always putting it back to the client. So who would read 4.2?
I can go. Coach shows support, empathy, or concern for the client.
Which seems like, oh, sure, that's easy to do. But what does a coach say to show support, empathy, or concern? Let's say the client is crying. They took away the one that says, what did it say? Coach, something about the ability to be with strong emotions without becoming enmeshed. And they said it very clearly, but they've kind of blended it into these. So what if the client is crying? What could you say to show support, empathy, or concern?
I initially say nothing. Actually, I tend to pause when they're crying to give them the space to just be with that.
Yeah, you can say nothing. Yeah.
I say nothing, and then I express that what I feel the pain. I feel a lot of pain, so I express on mirroring, like just stating the feelings, his feeling or her feeling.
I ask what's coming up for you.
Mhm.
But I see. Can you share with me what's going on?
Yeah, a lot of the time. Go ahead.
Yeah, so one of my clients, and whenever she cries, she apologizes. She says, sorry. She says, sorry, I'm crying. Sorry, I'm emotional. So I just say, it's okay. It's okay to be emotional. That's normal.
Yeah, the crying thing, it's funny because, well, not funny, ironic. Somewhere a long time ago, I read that the consistency of tears, the chemical consistency of tears of joy and tears of sorrow is different, and the body is wise, and it releases the chemicals it needs to release. So I'm a big proponent of crying, and I will often say, this is a safe space for you to feel. I love that you're able to, I love that you feel safe enough here to let these emotions come to the surface. Take as long as you need. Yeah. So really, support and empathy and concern are not difficult to express. But just being present to whatever is going on. I hear a lot of, sometimes what I'll do is, rather than name what I think or what I'm perceiving it to be, I'll say, I see there's a lot of emotion coming up for you. What's going on? What are you feeling? And what are you getting? What are you experiencing? Again, we talked about the word experiencing yesterday, Shakti. Yeah. Because if they're visual, there's a lot of emotion coming up. What are you seeing in them?
And
Marcia?
Joanna, I have a question here. So when you have this situation of crying, right? So not necessarily it's an easy thing, but sometimes it's the time to go to that competency, that acknowledgement or even celebration, because sometimes you say, it's beautiful to witness you allowing yourself to feel. And it's not a celebration, but it's acknowledging that, especially in clients that get stuck, and one day they open up. I think that's that competence, because if we praise them and celebrate this, right? Not that it's easy, but it's an achievement for certain clients. When so I think I'm jumping to the other competence, but it's related, right? This one with the other can be related.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. Crying is a special one for me. It's because so many people have been taught not to cry. And like Coco said, apologize, and this whole thing of it's some level of shame for having an emotion. So I see it as the one that if there's one emotion to learn to support, to learn this one first. And I've had clients who are like chronic criers. Like they'll come into my office and they get mad at themselves for crying. And over time, as they're allowed to safely express, it stops. And they shift and they become so much more capable of actually experiencing, we call it managing their emotions, but what they're doing is actually experiencing their emotions appropriately, because they haven't, throttled them for so long. So I see that a lot. I don't know, crying people come to me. Maybe you guys don't get as many as I do, but I see some nodding heads. Let's see. 4.3, who would read 4.3 for me? Just take yourself off mute. Oh, Carol, go ahead.
Coach acknowledges and supports the client's expression of feelings, perceptions, concerns, beliefs, or suggestions.
And I'm sure we've all had an episode where a client did not, or a coach did not do that. How many of you get coached? Okay. My firm belief is everyone needs a coach, and that includes coaches. I had one of the coaches that I mentored went to an ICF function and met a coach and said, "Oh, who is your coach?" And the person responded and said, "I don't need a coach. I am a coach." And my mentee said, "My first thought was, okay, princess." So we've all had the experience of not being supported in expression. What in either your practice of how you support or your practice of being coached, what's the best experience you've had of really being supported or supporting someone in their expression of feelings, perceptions, or suggestions, either whether it was someone supported you or you supported someone else? What does it sort of describe the experience?
For me, it's been when the experience can be fully processed when it comes to the emotion. So I can be in it and I can be with it and I can get from it everything that I need, and we can name it, and and in that moment, I might not know everything I'm getting from it. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. But just to have that opportunity and the support to be able to ride that wave to where it takes you, that to me is phenomenal.
So that sounds delicious. How do you know? Can you describe the support for riding the wave?
The support is a combination of pause and being with, like an energy that the person is sharing with you. It's There's some powerful questions. That obviously not during, usually slightly after the pause when you're kind of just in the emotion still, actually. And then tying it together, like just putting something to it, bringing some awareness and acknowledgement to what happened and where are you now and where, so just kind of seeing that.
So I'm hearing a lot of the other competencies, the powerful questioning, the active silence, the active listening. I'm hearing a lot of things rolling up into being acknowledged and being supported.
Yeah.
Anybody else want to share what acknowledging and supporting expressions of feelings, perceptions, concerns, beliefs, suggestions, what that feels like?
I was going to say, when I've been coached and I've had that experience, it's that I feel like I'm really being heard, that somebody is getting it. And that allows me to then go on to see what I want to do with it. But when I have that moment where I feel like this person is really hearing and seeing me, and then I can go to wherever I need to go next.
So what are the clues that they're hearing and seeing you?
A lot of it's nonverbal. It's just being really engaged and doing things like nodding their head, having a warm, open face, listening deeply, reflecting back maybe some of the things that they're hearing, again, without a lot of judgment or anything around it, just reflecting it back. All of those things I think are really important.
And I love that you mentioned the without judgment, because reflecting back, oftentimes I will, especially when the client has something that they have a judgment on, I will take the stance of it being a good thing and tell them I'm really glad that they're whatever, that they're able to do that. And it gives another perspective. But also in being supportive, because they've got enough judgment, they don't need mine. I have never met a human being who actually needs me to judge them. They're doing enough of that themselves. So what about 4.4? Who would read that?
I can read that. Coach partners with the client by inviting the client to respond in any way to the coach's contributions and accepts the client's response.
Mm-hmm. So how do you make that invitation clear? Because there's always a power differential. The coach is always seen as an authority, or almost always.
I think this is when we check, say, hey, I'm sensing something, or I'm noticing something, and what does it mean to you? So what do you think about this that I'm sharing with you? And they may say nothing, or you're crazy, whatever, and then okay. But we can keep exploring, or we can just say, okay, not a territory the person wants to go, right?
Yeah. Oh, that's a super important point. What if the person doesn't want to go there? What does the coach do? Let it go.
Let it go.
Let it go. I am not here to fix. As a matter of fact, the desire to fix is a judgment. And it took me a long time to realize that. Carol, yeah.
I was going to say, I start within the discovery session, kind of talking about that whole aspect of, like, I may ask you at some point if I can share an observation, but you're the expert on your life and what you want to accomplish. And that's all it is an observation. And you can push back, and say whatever you need to say in that moment, and tell me if you feel like it's off base or that you don't want to hear it. So I try to start out with that as a foundation. And then if it comes up, we can go back to that, that we've had that agreement.
because clients will forget those agreements. That is, especially if they're paying you money, when they write that check, you become the authority. I'm an internal coach. They still see me as like an arm of the company. So, I have the authority of the company behind me. So full partner, I got to work on that relationship. That takes a lot of work. And a lot of the time, that kind of what you said, Carol, about you are the only expert in your own life. You're the only one that's been there the whole time. And I'll say something and I'll say, you can say yes, you can say, or I'll say, I want to share something with you. You can say yes, you can say no, you can tell me I'm crazy. Whatever it takes to get them. And the first time they tell me I'm crazy, or the first time they're like, no, that doesn't work for me, I'm like, yes, I've been waiting for you to tell me no. Because again, telling people no is a kind of like the crying thing. They're so sorry. We're trained, well, certain people are trained, never to say no. So this is good stuff.
I would like to add on that. It's also people that don't know how to say no. You cannot give value to the yes. That's the problem also. Because how do you value the yes when someone cannot say no or have a hard time, So I think there is also a question of trust and value in saying no for this as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that especially with cultivating trust and safety. Until someone, yeah, I read that quote a long time ago about the yes has no value until the no does. And I call it broken no syndrome. Because that's what it feels like. Any other comments around competency 4 before we move to competency 5? All right, I'm going to switch back on screen to the competencies. I'm going to scroll up. Competency 5 talks about maintaining presence. Would someone read the definition for me?
I can.
Thanks, Uli.
Maintaining presence. Is fully conscious and present with a client, employing a style that is open, flexible, grounded, and confident.
So I feel like we have covered most of this, especially the open and flexible. So a grounded presence. What does a grounded presence look like in a coach?
I think it looks like you don't get shaken up by anything that's happening in the session. That you don't look rattled, you don't jump in. You're able to just kind of stay there and, be calm, kind of regardless of what's, happening in that moment, and take a deep breath and proceed from that spot where you're kind of centered.
I love that. How many of you ride horses? Oh, some. Okay.
So I didn't understand the question. How many of you what?
Ride horses, equestrian.
Oh, right. Okay. Ride horses. Now I understood. No, I don't.
Yeah. So I grew up, my first word was pony. And my mom was so mad at my dad. But I grew up loving horses. And there is a term in the horse world, bomb-proof. And not many horses are. But a bomb-proof horse, you can ride them through water. You wouldn't believe how many horses will not go through a puddle. They know they're going to drown and die. If there's a piece of plastic that flaps, if a car backfires, if these are all dangers, a plastic bag just floating by can startle a horse terribly. And this is normal for a horse. To get a bomb-proof horse that doesn't react to all this stuff, the horse next to them whinnies or bucks or does something. The horse I'm on may follow suit. This is not desired behavior. And I think about coaches the same way. Like the normal world, if somebody is crying, people try to get them to stop. I'm not comfortable with your crying. I need you to quit. In coaching world, whether I am comfortable with your crying or not is none of your business. Whether I am comfortable with silence or not is none of your business. Whether I am comfortable with anger or not is none of your business. Whether I agree with what you're saying or not is none of your business. As that grounded coach, no matter what you throw at me, I'm going to come back in support of you. Yeah.
I was going to say, also rooted in the sense that, or what I want to say, you're rooted in the sense that you're present in a moment, but you're detached to be supportive of your client. So you don't get entangled, but you are become their rod of support in a sense.
Yeah. They can throw whatever they need to throw at you, all the mud in the world, and you're just going to be there. Marcia. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that when I read all of these and remembering the sessions, I think this is the competency where we notice the client saying the things or downloading the self-talk to something that they can listen to themselves. And when we are curious about that, we give back something because we are not attached, right? So say, this is what I'm hearing. This is the presence, and say, what does it mean to you? So how does it look like, or how does it feel to say this out loud? And because this is really how Coco was saying, so people apologize for crying, but the moment we reinforce the safe space, they as you said, shift the crying and all those things. But many times it's the only moment where they listen, not only hear, but they listen to what they are thinking, and then they realize what it means really to them. And I think this is where they really deal, because it lives here, but they start like tangible dealing with everything that they're talking about. I think that's the present thing, because we give them this space or the territory to deal with this only thinking or only emotional that they cannot. So that, yeah, thinking too much.
So I'm going to quickly read the markers. I'm going to leave the competencies up for a minute. Or you know what? I have people that have asked me to switch, so I will switch over so that you can hear and see. My apologies. There we go. Coach acts in response to the whole person of the client, the who. Coach acts in response to what the client wants to accomplish in the session, the what. Coach partners with the client by supporting the client to choose what happens. Coach demonstrates curiosity to learn more about the client. Coach allows for silence, pause, or reflection. And we spoke earlier in the week about that. Coach allows for silence, pause, or reflection. I still haven't figured out how to score that as an assessor. What I do know is it has to be, do you need to write that down? Do you want to take a moment to think about that? It has to be an invitation. It says allows in the competencies, but they don't allow us to score as just allowing for silence. Like if I just pause, if I just create a lot of space and let that will not score competency 5.5. Drives me nuts. So I'm having an argument with the ICF about how it's worded.
So, and it seems to be a moment where a yes or no question is okay. Do you need time? Because this is a yes or no question, which is another myth in the assessment in the competencies and markers,
yeah,
right?
Yes, there's a myth out there that says all questions have to be yes or no, and where is it? Okay, competency 7.6. Coach asks primarily clear, direct, primarily open-ended questions. You do not have to make every question open-ended.
Yeah,
reason-
I'm saying this because I like the way you said, do you need a time now? And it is a yes or no question, and it's appropriate for the moment, right?
Exactly. And sometimes the answer is they don't say anything because they can't.
But also, I think that when you're asking the question, and so I'm glad that you're having a conversation with people about this, because when you're asking the question, it could certainly for me, it almost makes me feel like something needs to happen now. So the invitation actually closes the invitation. And I know
So
that
how would you-
I
how
know
would
that
you
that's
say it
my
differently? How would you say
I
it?
don't honestly, I find it annoying that something has to be said, because
and-
the way I like to create the space is actually just create the space. Because
I
as soon as
completely.
I open my mouth, I've actually killed that space that the client needs to be with whatever they were doing. I'm interrupting the energy.
Yeah, and I do not disagree at all. For the purposes of assessing,
Yes, I understand.
for the purposes of assessing, maybe don't ask a question. Take all the time you need. Might be a way to do that without asking a question. Take all the time you need. And I have done that, and it has allowed for a greater silence. It's allowed for more tears. It's allowed for, because they're trying to stop themselves. I'm like, take all the time you need. And you'll know if you're really tuned in. Shakti, it sounds like you're very tuned into the energy of your clients. And tuning into energy really is a skill that is developed over time and through practice and with effective feedback. We have 1 minute left. These sessions are never long enough. At least not for me. We have 1 minute left. I'd like to hear from each of you. What are your practices to make sure that you are taken care of so that you stay grounded and confident and fully present? Maybe put it in the chat. Maybe I'm going to stop sharing the screen so we can see each other.
Well, for me, it is, to your earlier point, Joanna, just continue to work on myself, continue to be coached so that I don't get triggered in the session.
I want to add, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say I journal every day and I exercise every day, at least Monday through Friday. Sometimes on Sundays, because I need to reset.
Valeska, then Carol, then Suli, then we got to go.
I, as Coco said, I have my coach, I have my therapist, and I exercise 4 times a week too. And so walking is something that makes me, and I walk every day, and this makes my brain just flow away. And I feel renewed when I come back from my long walks. But those are the things that I do to take care.
Perfect. Carol.
Yeah, I have a coach too, but before sessions, I try to leave enough space for me to do a little bit of mindfulness practice and do some deep breathing so I can let go of whatever happened right before and get present in the moment.
Suli.
I do walks with nature especially, and gives me a chance to really, I say, evaporate to the universe. And but before every session, sometimes I take a little longer than I think. I center myself and I ask that whatever comes out is for my client's best interest and not mine. And I put the breathing into practice for myself, as I do for most of my clients. So centering.
Perfect. So I'm glad that we ended on our self-care practices, because I think they are incredibly important. So take them with you. Those of you I didn't get to hear from, you know, my heart is with you. At least I hope you do. Thank you so much, each and every one of you, for being here, for being present, and for always deepening your coaching practice.
Thank you for your
Thank you,
generosity,
Joanna.
Joanna. Amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Joanna.
so
It was
much.
wonderful.
What
Thank you
a
very
gift.
much.
What a gift I had this week being
Mm.
with all of you 4 days. Thank you so much. Thank you.